Good evening, church. Good evening. Good evening. I pray your Tuesday is going well. I pray your Tuesday is beautiful. I pray that you are at home chilling right about now in this hour. Listen, I'm excited to be able to continue this conversation on spiritual disciplines. Pastor Moody talked about last week this idea in this discipline of prayer. He highlighted and honored his spiritual father who passed away last week, and we want to keep his family and those who are close to him in prayer. Talking about how he modeled prayer for him, how he modeled this discipline of prayer and how it grew upon him. And he talked about this idea of Jesus praying. And I want to submit to you that if Jesus had to pray so much, if Jesus prayed so much, that suggests to us that we pray so much more. That Jesus had this discipline of prayer, that he would go to the mountain to pray and speak with his Father. But I want to suggest specifically tonight that he not only prayed because he was God, but he prayed because he was man. That he didn't pray because of his divinity, but he prayed because of his humanity. We cannot forget that Jesus was, just as much as he was God, he was also man. He was 100% God and he was 100% man, which suggests that he dealt with the same temptations, the same feelings, the same thoughts and things that we go through. And that Jesus prayed so that he can stay eligible for the cross. He prayed to his Father to keep him away from sin, to keep him away from falling into this idea of temptation. Listen, y'all know Matthew chapter 4, the devil tried to tempt Jesus, did tempt Jesus, but Jesus didn't fall into it. And simply because he was in this mode of prayer, he was in this mode, this discipline of prayer. Specifically in that time, he was in this discipline of fasting. And that's something that we need to take a note right there, is that simply the enemy will come in when we are at our weakest to try to entice us to do things. And there Jesus was weak physically because he has not eaten for 40 days or 40 nights. And that's when the enemy crept in at the height probably of his hunger, when he was feeling like giving up, and came in. And simply, I believe Jesus was able to withhold and stand out simply because he was able to have this discipline of prayer. You will see that in major scenarios, in major times of the gospel where Jesus was, he always went to the mountain to pray with his Father. I want to submit to you that is so profound and that's so dynamic, simply because he took himself out of society to speak with his Father, to speak with and pray with his Father. Pastor Moody also talked about how you need a designated place to pray. You need a place with no distractions. You know, Christ would always be around a multitude of people doing specific and mighty things. He was always around people doing miracles. He was always around people. He had his disciples, and he still needed that separate time apart. It was a discipline for him because he made sure that he will always go to the mountain to pray to his Father. I want to ask you a question tonight. Where is your mountain? Where do you pray to God? Where do you be by yourself with the Father? How are you practicing this idea of solitude, of sitting and soaking up this idea of sitting in the presence of the Lord? How are you? Where is that specific place for you? That's what I want to kind of hound on tonight, is that we talk about these disciplines, but I also want to talk about the practical ideas of these disciplines. What are you doing now to be able to have these disciplines in your life? Where is your designated place? Where is your areas? Where is your square feet where you're able to speak to the Lord and pray to him on a daily basis? I want to also submit to you that this idea of prayer, this idea of spiritual disciplines, is not for us to see. It's not something that you showcase to everybody. It's not something that you present to the world. It's something for you to be able to practice. I'm submitting this to you because simply we need to understand that spiritual disciplines are for you to grow closer to the Master. That praying is not just for others around you, but praying to God is simply for you as well. That when Jesus was in the mountaintop, I want to suggest that he prayed for himself, to keep him eligible for the cross, to keep him, in a sense, in a position to be able to die for us, to keep him in a position for us to be able to have this right to the tree of life. That his discipline of prayer to his father, his discipline of communicating with his master, with his father, was for him to continue to grow closer to him, to draw near to God. Last thing I want to submit to you about prayer and the spiritual discipline is that it may seem like a routine, but it will come up when you need it the most. I would end with this story. I would wake up in the morning, around 2019, I would start doing this. I'll wake up in the morning, I'll read the verse of the day, meditate and pray on it, and I'll go to sleep, read the verse of the day, meditate and pray on it before I go to sleep. I would do this every day, and it would become so routine, it would become so ritual, like a ritual, that I didn't feel as if something was happening. But it wasn't until 2020 when church shut down, when everything was gone, in the sense that when you were at home and you had nothing but yourself. It wasn't until then when all those things that I prayed, that I spoke, that I meditated on came up at the right time. I'm suggesting to you that in these spiritual disciplines that we walk and do, such as prayer, fasting, etc., these are seeds that you are planting for the right times. You never know where it's going to come up, but it's going to come up somewhere. And that me being indulged in the scriptures then came up in 2020 when I needed it the most. That I was able to recall the things that I meditated on. That my discipline of praying, that my discipline of listening, that my discipline of before I start my day in the morning, before I lay down, was to seek his word alongside of everything else. It wasn't until 2020 when it came up the most. So I'm suggesting to you and encourage you that sometimes you may not see the progress of your praying, of your fasting, of whatever you're reading, your devotions. You may not see that progress every single day, but when you will see it, you will see it when you need it the most. You will see it when the flower begins to sprout out the ground. And spiritual disciplines are for you to plant seeds for others behind you. Pastor Moody spoke about how his spiritual father, how him walking around, him praying, rubbed off on him. It created a lifestyle of prayer for Pastor Moody. And this idea of him being able to lead a ministry is simply because of prayer. This idea of prayer. I'm sitting here thinking this morning that this church really runs off of prayer. That is, it is running off of the prayers of people that prayers that pastors and many ministry leaders have prayed years ago. That you never know what your prayers will sustain in the future. You never know who your prayers will sustain. You never know how your prayers will sustain you in the future. So my question to you is, as we end this discussion, as we end this dialogue, as we end this reflection, where is your mountaintop? Where are you spending time with the Lord? How are you creating practical ways to be disciplined to pray? It could be in your car. It could be in your room. It could be in your basement. It could be outside. It could be in the bathroom, the shower. It could be in your office. Where's your mountain? Where are you tapping into the supernatural? How are you disciplining yourself to do so? Plant the seeds today for those behind you tomorrow. That spiritual disciplines are for you to create a path for others to walk behind you in such a way that will keep them straight, that will keep them guided, that will allow them to create that same pattern and to build off of it. Prayer is essential. I want to suggest tonight that we need prayer as much as we need air. That we need prayer as much as we need water. So understand that this is a necessity to you. I'll say this last thing. For those of you who eat healthy, you may not see the result once you eat whatever you're eating that's very healthy. But sure enough, you'll see the result if you stay disciplined months, years, weeks down the road. That many people stop working out, many people stop eating healthy because they don't see the instant results. They don't see the instant change. I want to suggest to you that many Christians, many people have fell from their faith because they don't see the instant change. They don't see the instant results. But those who are committed, those who discipline themselves to continue to eat right, to continue to work out, will tell you and show you pictures of the results that they have gotten in the weeks, in the months, in the years. And that's the same thing with this spiritual discipline of prayer. You may not see it today. You may not see it tomorrow. But sure enough, you'll see it if you stay disciplined. Y'all have a great night. I pray that I helped you. I pray that you were able to think a little bit. I pray that I helped you put some pedal to the metal. Thank God for you all. Have a great night. Don't forget our announcements. We have men's and women's Bible study every Tuesday, 5:30, youth at 7, prayer on Wednesday at 7, and service on Sunday at 11:30. All right, I'll see you all next week. Y'all be blessed. God be praised.